Okay, so we'll make a right up here onto Route 101A.
All right, got it. You know, we should probably stop for gas. We're getting low.
No problem. Actually, our destination today can help us take care of that too.
Okay.
And there it is. It's coming up on our right.
The Cumberland Farms gas station?
Yeah, that's it.
We drove to Nashua, New Hampshire to visit a Cumbies?
We did.
Aren't there maybe 30 or 40 of them closer to home than this one?
Yeah, that's probably true.
Well, then why this one? It looks brand new with its convenience store and gas pumps.
Yeah, it is pretty new. It opened in 2022. But still, we're here to look for ghosts because the building that was here before the Cumbies was widely considered one of New Hampshire's most haunted. Hey, I'm Jeff Belanger. Welcome to episode 348 of the New England Legends podcast.
And hi, I'm Ray Auger. Thanks for riding along with us as we chronicle every legend in New England, one story at a time. Hey, do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button right now so we can bring you weirdness in bite-sized packages twice a week. On Mondays, we have a From the Vault episode where we revisit an older legend we've covered before with some new commentary. Thursdays, you get the new episode like this one. Please subscribe and help spread the word because most of our story leads come from you. Reach out to us anytime through our website.
So we'll go looking for gas and ghosts at this potentially haunted Cumbies right after this word from our sponsor.
So we're at the Cumberland Farms at the corner of Route 101A in Townsend West to get gas. Maybe grab some New Hampshire scratchies, a few snacks, hit up their milkshake machine, and look for ghosts?
And look for ghosts. That's the plan.
Well, that is convenient.
I know, right?
Here's a little backstory of the city of Nashua. The first European colonists settled here in the 1640s, back when it was part of the township of Dunstable, which was part of Massachusetts Bay Colony.
Sure.
From 1675 to 1725, this region was a difficult place to live. It was referred to as, quote, the front of danger, because the King Philip's War, Queen Anne's War, and Prince William's War all brought violence and bloodshed to everyone as the Native Americans in the region fought for their homeland, and British forces fought to push them out. In 1746, the new state line was drawn between Massachusetts and New Hampshire, and a bridge was built here in 1748 over the Nashua River. After that, the town slowly grew into a city. Today, it's the second largest city in New Hampshire by population. Manchester is first.
So, lots of history here, and many historic buildings too. However, some of those historic buildings have been lost to make way for things like
Cumberland Farms, gas stations, and convenience stores.
Yeah, exactly, like that. Now, before there was a Cumbies here, there was a restaurant called the Country Tavern that was so haunted, their menu devoted an entire page to explaining why. And before it was the Country Tavern, it was a farmhouse that may date back to the earliest days of Nashua in the 1740s, although another record claims it was built in 1774, and the city property records claim it was built circa 1789.
Either way, it's old. It's pretty old.
It's definitely old. Various families lived here over the centuries before it was turned into a restaurant in 1983, but we're going to focus on when the farm was owned by the Ford family. So let's head back to 1797 and meet them.
It's June of 1797 here in Nashua, New Hampshire. It's an exciting time because America is still a new nation and a new idea. Towns and cities are growing fast as an influx of immigrants come to the country for the promise of a better life. Towns like Nashua are getting more populated as factories pop up along the river and farms grow.
Here at the Ford farm, life is pretty simple and quiet. Elizabeth Ford lives here with her husband. He's a sea captain, so when he's not on the farm, sometimes he's gone for long stretches at a time.
When Captain Ford is away, life here can get pretty lonely for Elizabeth, but she makes do. She tends to a few animals that they have. She sees to the other chores. And she longs for a more exciting life that she'll never get.
So one day, Captain Ford tells his wife he's been hired to captain a year-long voyage. She'll need to get by on her own until he returns. Not having any other choice, Elizabeth agrees. And Captain Ford makes for the coast and is awaiting ship.
2 months pass. When her husband's away, things aren't all that bad for Elizabeth. She finds ways to amuse herself. She visits friends, she reads,
What's wrong?
I'm sure it's nothing, but Elizabeth is holding her stomach. She's not feeling... I don't think Elizabeth is going to be alone here at the farm that much longer.
I think you're right.
Months pass, and Elizabeth's stomach grows a little bigger each day.
Got it.
Her neighbors assume Captain Ford left her with this little gift before he left for his voyage. But Elizabeth knows the math does not work in her husband's favor. Pretty soon, Elizabeth's child is born.
With her husband due home next month, Elizabeth is concerned. But she's also got her hands full with a newborn. Quicker than she would like, Captain Ford returns home and finds his wife holding an infant that's just a few weeks old.
Captain Ford does some quick math in his head and realizes this kid can't possibly be his. He locks his wife in a closet, then buries the child somewhere on the property.
Ford returns to the closet to tell his wife what he'd done with some other man's child. Elizabeth snaps. She goes mad with grief and attacks her husband. But being much smaller than her husband, she doesn't stand a chance. Ford murders his wife and dumps her body in the well on the property before he walks away from his old life and away from Nashua.
Elizabeth's body is discovered and buried somewhere in town, and time marches on. Eventually, a new family moves into the farmhouse, and soon they find they're not quite alone. A ghostly female presence haunts the home decade after decade. And that brings us back to today.
As we said earlier, this home was converted into the Country Tavern restaurant in 1983, but the haunting continued. Pitchers of water would reportedly fly across the room and land on the other side, and ghostly apparitions of a woman had been seen and voices had been heard. The activity was occurring so often, it caught the attention of television shows like Hard Copy and Inside Edition. Then the haunt appeared in books, including one of my old books, The Encyclopedia of Haunted Places, and the legend grew.
At one point, the back of the restaurant's menu featured a reprinted news article about the haunting, an entire page of the menu. The headline read, "Skeptics Become Believers Sampling Tavern Spirit."
Anything that went wrong in the restaurant was blamed on the ghost of Elizabeth. If someone on the waitstaff dropped a plate, it was Elizabeth. If anything fell off a table, Elizabeth.
Now, we should point out that we found no historical record of the murder of Elizabeth or her child. The story of the murder seems to come from a psychic who passed it along. It was printed in a book and another. Then the story made it to television and was repeated so many times, people took it as fact.
Now, we're not saying the restaurant wasn't haunted. Far from it. We assume it was because a lot of people over a long period of time had many unexplained reports. We're just saying it's possible, maybe even likely, that the haunting backstory is wrong. That happens with a haunt. We try to make sense of the unexplained, so we latch on to a plausible backstory. I mean, of course, a murdered mother with a murdered child would stick around crying out for justice. But that may not be what happened here.
The Country Tavern restaurant shut its doors for good in May of 2020. It was one of the many restaurants that didn't survive the COVID-19 shutdown. The building was torn down in the summer of 2021 to make way for this Cumberland Farms gas station and convenience store that we see here today.
And that begs the question if the Cumbies is now haunted. Sure, the old building is gone, but it's the same land. However, I get the context requires a lot more imagination. I mean, when you're moving through a building that looks pretty much the way it did centuries ago, it doesn't take a lot of imagination to think about the former owners standing, right over there in what used to be their living room. When you're walking down the aisles filled with beef jerky, chips, ring-dings, ho-hos, it's a little tougher to connect with former occupants from a century ago. But still, for over 40 years, people talked about the building on this property being profoundly haunted. I don't think that goes away just because you tear down the walls and put up a Cumbies.
And we still need to get gas with ghosts. And that brings us to After the Legend, where we drive a little further into this week's story and sometimes we veer off course.
After the Legend is brought to you by our Patreon patrons. In short, our Patreon patrons make the magic happen. They help us with all our hosting costs, travel costs, marketing, and everything else it takes to bring you 2 stories each week. They're the backbone and part of a special community of insiders who get early, ad-free access to new episodes, plus bonus episodes and content that no one else gets to hear. It's just $3 per month, and it goes a long way in helping the cause to chronicle every legend in New England, one story at a time. Please join us at patreon.com/New England Legends. And to see some pictures, the old Country Tavern, click on the link in our episode description or go to our website and click on episode 348. And to be fair, we have no ghostly reports from the Cumbies yet. Haven't heard any yet. But
Slushy machine isn't turning on by itself.
Like, oh, what's that? Right? Yeah, the shake machine, all that stuff.
Although I bet you those hot dogs on the rollers are pretty haunted. They've been there for a long time.
I wouldn't eat them. That's me. Like And
Would
I love
you at 2 a.m. though?
Yes.
Yeah. Desperate need of something.
With a sound mind and body, no.
Do you have a go-to when you go to a convenience store, like late at night?
Oh, yeah. So I'm usually craving like chocolatey, cakey things.
Chocolate, okay.
Yeah, chocolate is, I can do chocolate anytime.
I usually go for Doritos, like a small bag of Doritos. And I figured at that point, I might as well have a Diet Coke, which I don't drink a lot. But if I'm going to have a bag of Doritos.
Yeah. Road food, beef jerky.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Never occurs to me to buy beef jerky unless it's a road trip.
Yeah,
like
right.
It's not even in my head. Like,
no, do I have some behind me? Do you see in the glass? Do I have a couple?
You do.
I do. Yeah,
I do.
That was a Christmas present.
Oh,
I refuse to eat the rest. If you want one,
you're not on a road trip.
I know, right? Exactly.
Yeah,
if I'm going somewhere, I'll grab one.
Yeah, right. That makes sense. No, yeah. I mean, think about it. You're in a convenience store all the time. You get gas. You go inside to pay or get a scratchy ticket or something. But that food doesn't call to you when you're just going home.
No,
but you're like, oh, we got hours ahead.
Right.
Let's.
As a matter of fact, when I drove cross country, we went to the store before we left, and Brady loaded up on beef jerky for the trip because it's a road trip food.
Yeah,
You're right, absolutely right.
I get it. But this begs the question: building gets torn down, new one goes up.
Yep.
Is it haunted?
Well, Poltergeist taught us that if something's buried underneath, then yes, it is.
Yeah.
I think that would, but there was a supposed murder, 2 murders,
right?
So that would do it. They were buried on the property, though.
Well,
so,
right.
Supposedly.
Supposedly, yeah. Allegedly. But I do wonder, and I get it, context is so important. When you're in a creepy old building, you feel that.
Yeah.
And when you're in a brightly lit, music playing,
That's true.
People stumbling in and out. I need a pack of smokes. I need some sodas or whatever. It's your brain doesn't go there as naturally.
And if you're a ghost, is it fun to haunt a new building?
I would think it'd be
scary?
great fun.
It'd be fun, but would it be as scary? Something falls off the shelf in a brightly lit with music playing in the background store. But if you're walking through an abandoned house, it's 500 years old and something falls.
Oh yeah.
Then you're thinking differently. Like you said, your mind goes somewhere.
Right.
But if you're a ghost, I think it'd be more fun to haunt the dilapidated building.
Well, I imagine, the ghost of the woman murdered, right? Just waiting, and like you're standing there in front of all the chips. You're like, which one do I want? Do I want Doritos? Do I want pretzels? And then just a bag gets thrown at you. You're
that would be helpful.
I'll take
that.
I guess we're having Cool Ranch Doritos today. That's what's going down.
Yeah. Well, that would be fun.
Yeah, that would be fun and awkward. Be like, your shelves just threw this at me.
It's a new marketing.
You got to buy it now. Like that's how it goes.
Doritos hired a ghost to make the decision for you.
Smart.
Right?
Wicked smart. But I do wonder, about that. Like what was on the land before? It's a question I always ask when I'm researching a property.
Yeah.
Even if it's an old building. Well, what was there before the old building?
Yeah.
Because sometimes, quite often, and this is where you can look at like old Sanborn fire maps, fire insurance maps. These are maps from, a century ago, 150 years ago, where you can see you can look at the modern streets are still there, right? And you look and you say, oh, there was a building here before this building. You think, oh, this building was built like 120 years ago. And before that, there was another one.
And then you can go visit the property and pretty much see where it was. So there was a shed in the back.
Yeah.
Some weird things happened in that shed. Now it's not there.
It's all there. I mean, and so you wonder if what's the history of the land before that? And what's before it was ever a town? What was there?
Right.
Was it Native
Burial
American
grounds?
land?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, did they live there? Did they die there? Was there a native battle there? Some of that stuff is just lost to history. I mean, if it goes back a certain time, no one tracked it.
Right.
But there's always a story. People are like, oh, this is the oldest part of the country. I always laugh at that. I'm just like, it's all the same age. It's billions of year old, right? Like there's rocks and dirt and stuff. Like it's literally all the same age, the whole planet. But
that's a good point. Never thought of that.
Yeah. I mean, but I get that people weren't here first.
Sure.
Right? Like that took a while and then they showed up and, so yeah, humans speak. But even then, it's still like 10, 11,000 years of human history around New England. I mean, it's a long time.
That's true.
Long time for lots of things to happen. There's right where we are right now. Someone could have died 9,000 years ago.
Now you're telling me?
Right where you are, not so much me. Like I'm thinking more where you're
Is that why
standing.
I'm levitating? Yeah. I was wondering what was going on.
Pretty much. But yeah, so we wonder about that. And next time you gas up at a Cumbies, you're just going to have to ask, is this one haunted?
If you've got a story you think we should check out, please reach out to us anytime through our website. So many of our story leads come from you. We appreciate when you get involved. Don't assume that we've heard a story before. On our website, you can also find dates for Jeff's ongoing story tour, dates to see my band, the Pub Kings, and you'll find video clips from the New England Legends television series that you can watch right now on Amazon Prime, plus links to join our New England Legends Facebook group and links to download our free New England Legends app for your smartphone, where you'll find a map for every legend we've covered.
We'd like to thank our sponsors, and thank you so very much to our Patreon patrons, and our theme music is by John Judd.
Until next time, remember,
The bizarre is closer than you think.